My neighbor is terrible, and I'm even worse. I'm ready to engage in underhanded tactics without resorting to calling the police. I vote to make you cry for police intervention. Since my youth, I've been a rascal. Expulsion from university for fighting, causing trouble at home every day, which spiked my parents' blood pressure. They decided to use their savings to buy me a second-hand apartment to live independent lie, out of sight and out of mind. Now free, I was looking for some amusement when my neighbors willingly came into the picture. I realized I had encountered a family of scoundrels, which delighted me immensely. It began with their habit of piling garbage at the door for days, waiting for the building manager to take it away. Initially, I ignored it, but one Sunday morning, I was greeted by an overwhelming stench from their garbage, possibly containing rotten eggs, almost making me vomit. Enraged, I knocked on their door, and a woman in her 40s, looking decent but with a fierce expression, answered when I complained about the garbage. She retorted with indifference, suggesting it throw it away myself. Recognizing her toughness, I casually picked up the garbage bag and tossed it inside their house. She screamed, followed by a barrage of insults, indicating my newness and questioning my desire to live. Then, a greasy, overweight man with yellow teeth emerged, brandishing a kitchen with knives in intimidating intent. He boldly challenged him, which led to a heated exchange filled with all sort of vulgar insults. Even my dog joined in, barking at them, which prompted the man to threaten it with the knife. This commotion attracted other neighbors, who intervened. The woman took this opportunity to curse me further before they retreated into their homes. Warnings of future troubles. I responded with anticipation. You'd better hurry. I was then persuaded by 3 elderly ladies from the neighborhood to come downstairs. They told me, young man, you really dare to stir things up. That family has been used to bullying everyone around here, and nobody in this building dares to mess with you. The previous owner sold the apartment because he could tolerate their harassment. This only made me more curious about what they did for a living. I found out from the elderly ladies that the man owned a shop selling flowers, birds, fish, and insects, while the women sold clothing. They probably made a good sum of money. The large SUV parked at the entrance of our building belongs to them. It was a Toyota off-road vehicle, and I realized why the car that blocked the entrance every day was never moved. It was theirs. After thanking the elderly ladies and pretending that I would let the matter go, I had already made up my mind not to let this slide. It's not easy to find a worthy opponent, and I was determined to give them a taste of their own medicine. Indeed, the next day they intensified their efforts, bringing in 7 or 8 bags of garbage, nearly blocking the hallway. Exam the red. Advice from the elderly neighbor lady to file complaints with the property management or call the police if necessary, but smiling to myself. I thought that complaining or calling the police was not my style. The first to resort to that would be admitting defeat. You want to throw trash? Fine, let's throw trash. I thought to myself, I'll show you what kind of trash can truly deliver a fatal blows. Immediately went back home, entered the bathroom to prepare, and defecated directly into the trash bag, not even bothering to tie it up before dumping it right at their doorsteps. Honestly, I was amazed by my own creativity. Indeed, competition breeds innovation. I almost wanted to knock on their door to thank them. I couldn't bear to leave. I went back home to wait, and it took only about 10 minutes for the effect to be heard. Their door opened, and a barrage of angry curses erupted, undoubtedly upon sightings of my golden gift. Overjoyed at home, as they began furious, like kicking my door. When I opened it, the whole family of 3 came out. their son, also quite the irritant with his sly looks, seems deserving of a good smack. Seeing his parents are rating me, he even tried to bite my leg, but I kicked him away and promptly shut the door. They continued to bang and curse outside, with the child crying, probably mimicking the adults. Ignored them completely. Let them bang on the sturdy door all they want if they can break it down. I won't open it. I'll frustrate them to death now. I fully stood under the character of this family. Ordinary people really wouldn't dare to provoke them. I felt sorry for the previous owner of my apartment for their cowardice. After about 10 minutes of commotion, they even called the property management instant lie. They transformed into a so-called middle-class couple of quality, accusing me of throwing feces, claiming I kicked their child, and labeling me like lie murderer. They complained about just leaving some trash out and even blamed the property management for not disposing of it promptly. They suddenly stood on a moral high ground. The property management, overwhelmed by their fuss, had no choice but to knock on my door. Ignored them. Turning on the TV, the noise outside lasted for almost another half hour before quieting down. I could let my dog and watch 2 movies before going out, only to find the doorway clean as new, with both the trash and feces gone, like lie cleared by the property management. Seeing it so clean felt odd, and I somewhat looked forward to their next round of trash throwing. After all, I visited the bathroom daily and would be ready, but the next 2 days passed without any trash at their disposal. It's Sameds they realized they had met their match and temporarily ceased their wrongdoing, leaving me somewhat disappointed. Yet, I knew the real battle had just begun. When facing evil, one must not stand by. Preemptive action is necessary. Only by outdoing the wicked can you truly subdue them. As I was contemplating my next move, an opportunity presented itself, and I could help but marvel at them being such wonderful neighbors. Initially, they used to leave a few pairs of frequently worn shoes outside their door, but since they stopped leaving out trash, the number of shoes increased, including even those they didn't usually wear, like lie, because they found it too unhygienic before. Sometimes, their son would kick the shoes right to my doorstep, which genuinely pleased me. He ordered a bottle of its ching powder from an online store, the kind that leaves whoever touches it scratching uncontrollably, intended specifically for pranks. Once the package arrived, I sneaked out at night, dusted the powder into their shoes, and returned home, eager awaiting the dawn to see them wearing the shoes. But I only fell asleep in the middle of the night and was rude awakened by the sound of someone banging on the door, rubbing my sleepy eyes. I opened the door to an instant burst of laughter. The woman from across the door was bending over, scratching her feet while holding the shoes, asking if I had poured ching powder into their shoes. Seeing her feet scratched red, I could hold back my laughter. She began to throw a tantrum, calling me heartless and vile, claiming they had let go of the past issues. Yet a shameless lie continued to harass them. She cursed my luck for having me as a neighbor. I was truly angered now. My vengeance for the previous day's insults not yet fully exacted. Staring at her infuriating face, I raised my hand and delivered redder-sounding slaps. Hitting a woman is not the act of a gentleman, but I am a scoundrel. She was stunned, falling to the ground, taking a while to recover, even forgetting to scratch her feet. The moment I whistled for my dog Black Panther to come out and chase her, my dog dashed out, shameless lie pouncing on the woman. She finally got up, screaming as she ran back home, slamming the door and immediately followed by loud wailing, cursing my mother and screaming about being bullied. My dog Black Panther is quite intelligent. He didn't bite her. I patted his head, and he wagged at his tail as we went back inside. But then, my door began to endure a barrage of banging. Her husband was raging, threatening to finish me off. So, the coward had been at home all along, letting his wife confront me. I chuckled, playing with Black Panther on the couch, ignoring the thunderous noise outside. But unexpected lie. They called the police. 10 minutes later, but unexpected lie with the police calling out from. They called the police. 10 minutes later, the police were outside, calling out loudly. I opened the door only to find her husband, eyes red with fury, ready to attack me, while the woman, half of her face red from the slap, was held back by the police. I smirked, asking, what's wrong? Do you know how much you'd have to pay if you hit me? Her husband, cursing, declared, you hit my wife, I'll kill you. The woman, tears streaming down her face and in apparent agony, told the police she felt dizzy, possibly concussed, and demanded compensation, suggesting it should hand over my apartment to her. Amused by their audacity, I thought to myself how outrageous their demands were. However, the police ordered them not to touch me, and to my disappointment, they complied. The police inquired if I had indeed hit anyone, to which I firmly denied. The couple came frantic, accusing me of lying straight to their faces. It challenged them, asking for any evidence of my alleged assault. With no surveillance footage or witnesses, the police were at a loss. It suggested to the officers to inquire about the couple's sexual conduct, hinting that maybe the husband was the aggressor, trying to pin the blame on me. The woman then proposed ADN test, believing my DNA would be on her face from the slap, which could prove my guilt. I laughed off her suggestion, marveling at her dramatics, and asked the police if such claims held any water. The police admitted it was theoretically possible, but noted the high cost and complexity of such tests, which they would have to bear themselves. As the neighbors began to gather, offering their opinions and whispering to the police, who were familiar with the couple's reputation, a consensus emerged to let the matter rest and for everyone to return to their homes. The couple, realizing they had made a scene for nothing, stormed off in a huff, with the husband threatening me with future retribution. A dismissive lie saw the police off, who warned me to avoid further trouble. Reflecting on the events, I pondered whether my actions had escalated the conflict, eager anticipating their next move. However, for 3 days, all was quiet. On a Saturday evening, as I took my dog Black Panther for a walk, we stumbled upon several sausages laid out along our path. It prevented Black Panthers from eating them, suspecting they might be spoiled or poisoned, a suspicion that seemed confirmed when, upon returning, I squeezed through the crowd only to see a fellow dog owner on the 3rd floor, cradling her dog in tears. The dog lay dead in her arms. A hurried lie asked what had happened. She sorrowfully explained that the dog had eaten some of the sausages, which likely contained poison. Shocked, we called the police. After some investigation, it was discovered that the sausages were coated with pesticides, evidently placed there on purpose. Surveillance footage revealed that it was the son of the family across from me, a schoolboy who had left the sausages. It all came clear to me then. The boy knew I walked my dog daily and intended to poison Black Panther as revenge. Such cruelty, not caring if other dogs would suffer the same fate. However, when the police visited, they found themselves at a loss on how to deal with the children. My neighbors insisted the boy was just being vu and mishied. After all, killing a dog wasn't taken as serious lie as it should be. The police could only give Zhang warning and left empty-handed the dog owner on. The third floor was both angry and sad, but dared not confront my family directly, burying her dog in silent mourning. Yet, I couldn't let it go. This was clearly charged at me. They thought letting their children do the dirty work would absolve them of responsibility. I, who am accustomed to playing the villain, particularly enjoy dealing with bullies, children or not, since they had escalated to threatening a dog's life. I would not hold back. That night, I learned about the boys' school and his reputation for bullying, including stealing snacks and allowance money from classmates, harassing girls, and even physically assaulting a girl for not letting him copy her homework. His parents would defend him aggressive against any complaints, leading most to back down. Knowing they could end twins against such a family, I decided to teach him Allison by hiring some delinquent teenagers from his school's middling school section. Each was paid $500 with a simple task: to beat the boy every day until he was too scared to attend school. As planned, the boy came home crying one evening, his face swollen from being slapped. My idea too. Target one side of his face to ensure it swelled up. He ran past me as I calmly watched, heading straight home. Soon after, I could hear furious yelling from their apartment and phone calls being made to the school, demanding action against the supposedly school violence. For the next week, I orchestrated irritation of the middle school bullies to take turns beating him, ensuring each one's actions were isolated to avoid any direct consequences beyond possibly being made to stand as punishment. This week was immensely entertaining for me. The boy came home injured every day, a broken nose on Tuesday, a black eye on Wednesday, and a swollen ear by Thursday, losing all his previous arrogance and avoiding anyone he saw. His parents made several futile trips to the school, but to no avail. Finally, with no recourse left and half a month until the winter breaks, they decided to have their children taken extended, left from school. I couldn't help but feel a sense of satisfaction. You wanted to poison my dog, and you thought I couldn't touch you, a little brat. As a reward, I gave the delinquent teenagers an additional $200 each as a bonus for their services, hinting at future collaborations. For the next few days, the family across the door didn't court any mischief. After a few quiet days, however, one evening at 9 o'clock, the man from across the door started banging on my door again. I opened it well, recording him on my phone, warning him not to get violent as everything was being documented and that his car would have to be compensation if he did. He aggressively retorted that he had found out who it was me, hired the thugs to beat up his son, questioning whether that was something a real man would do and challenging me to a face-to-face confrontation. Inwardly laughed. There was no way I would admit to it, especially since I had paid those teenagers in cash, leaving no evidence behind. I played dumb, claiming not to understand what he was talking about how he didn't believe me for seconds and continued to threaten me. But I simply shut the door in his face, refusing to acknowledge, frustrated his accusations, and perhaps having picked up some nefarious ideas elsewhere, he resorted to new schemes to get back at me. Somehow, he got hold of a loudspeaker, which he set up outside his door facing mine, and began blasting music at night in Anna's attacks. I found this rather amusing and decided to wait it out how he played the music for 3 hours, disturbing everyone in the building. Yet nobody dared to knock on his door. Although it was annoying, I waited until the right moment to act. After they turned off the music, presuming they wanted to sleep, it was my turn. With 20 years of experience in music, I decided to teach them what real powerful and impactful music sounded like. Used my Sennheiser subwoofer, which despite its small size, packs a significant punch. I didn't even need to open the door, thanks to a small windows in it designed for speaking to someone outside. I taped the subwoofer to this window and played the beginning, a majestic and sorrowful pieces that filled me with inexplicable sadness. The music exploded in the hallway at 2 a.m., waking my neighbors and specifically targeting the couple across from me. They came out, banging on my door and cursing me, even accusing me of causing a disturbance and calling me trash. Unfazed, I wore headphones and watched a movie, completely ignoring the chaos outside until I fell asleep. The next day, the music was still playing, and so was some square dance music from across the hall. Interesting lie, they had not called the police this time, opting instead for a direct confrontation. My other neighbors looked at me strangely, and though I felt a bit guilty for the convenience in, I saw it as a necessary evil in battling wrongdoing. My music and their square dance tunes alternated in a cacophony that lasted all day, creating mixes of melancholy and jubilation that left the building in turmoil. Eventually, after 2 days of non-stop music from my end and returning to my parents' house to avoid the fallout, the police finally reached out to me, instructing me to turn off the music. Upon my return, I found the police waiting and learned that it was my neighbors who had reported me for disturbing the peace. Surprising. I was upset, but rather pleased with myself for once again outsmarting them. It's saw meds they had, yet again admitted defeat. After discussing with the police, it came clear they were already aware of the instigation from across the neighbors. The hall, resorting to blaming me first. The police could only warn me against repeated lies, causing further disturbances. In the future, it gave my word, and they left. The couple from across the door didn't show their faces throughout the ordeal, probably too embarrassed by their own actions. However, it saw meds they had now taken too, playing the role of good citizens, retreating like turtles into their shells. Well, I was determined to force them out, not in the way they proposed, with physical confrontations, but with a different tactic altogether. The incident with the music gave me a devilish ideas. The man across the door owned a shopping selling birds, among other things, and new birds were not just prized for their appearance, but also for their song. The better they sang, the more valuable they were. Isam read from my childhood days spent with my grandfather how much he cherished the melodious calls of his birds. So I dug out an old speaker from home, download a plethora of dirty bird sounds, noises like the harsh cawing of crows or the discordant calls of wild birds that could potentially teaching the shop's birds some less than a desirable vocal habits. Birds, especially those prized for their songs, once they pick up these dirty sounds, can't unlearn them, drastically reducing their value. Early the next morning, I followed the man to his shop in the birds and fish markets. The shop was size stable, hinting at a certain dominance in the market. I lingered outside until the man left for lunch, leaving only a couple of employees behind. Sneaking in with the speaker, I noticed the shop was full of birds capable of mimicking sounds, including a variety of parrots, finding ablins spotted away from the surveillance cameras. I placed the speaker amidst the most dense lie, arranged potted plants, and left the store. From my phone, I blasted the dirty bird sounds at maximum volume through Bluetooth. Within moments, the shop was filled with chaotic noises, with the parrots and other birds quickly picking up the cacophony. The employees were in a frenzy, trying to locate the source of the sound, causing further chaos and even breaking a few flower pots in the process. After about 15 minutes of this, I knew I had successfully rendered most of the birds in the shop unsellable. The shop owner rushed back panic-stricken and furious, probably wishing he could wring the necks of every last one of his now devalued birds all watching from outside. I couldn't contain my glee, knowing that the day's losses would amount to thousands for him. These birds could exactly be stewed and eaten. They'd likely have to be released. Inadvertently doing them a favor, it felt strange to be doing something good that evening. My door was banged on yet again. Tired of this one, a note response. I opened it to find the couple standing there. The man gripping my speaker in one hand and his phone in the other, accusing me of infiltrating his store and ruining his birds. He called me underhanded for causing him to lose thousands. I retorted, dismissive questioning what that had to do with me daring him to call the police since he hadn't physically assaulting anyone or destroyed property. As he raged, I coolly began recording him, warning that any violence on his part would cost him even more. His wife, pointing directly at my face, cursed me, proclaiming that they had been in the neighborhood for many years without facing such audacity. She swore to make my ancestors regret I countered with eagerness for actions, continuing our battle and promptly shutting the door on their further insults, wondering what they could possibly do next. Short of setting my house on fire, it discovered their next move the following morning as I prepared to leave on my motorcycles. Just as I reached the garage, discovering my motorcycle with its headlights smashed, tires slashed, and license plate missing, I couldn't help but laugh, knowing without a doubt it was the work of my neighbors. Such petty revenge tactics, slashing tires and breaking glass, that's all they could muster. I felt almost sorry for them. I had ruined tens of thousands worth of their business, and the best they could retaliate with was a few thousands in damages. How unjust the world seemed. Well, let injustice prevail then. The actions had only inspired me further, compelling me to teach them what real vehicles destruction looked like. They owned an off-road vehicle, didn't they? I was about to render it completely useless. I prepared a bag of sugar and wrenches, borrowing a car from Tony, and for 3 days I followed the man, waiting for the perfect opportunity. He eventually entered the massage parlor that saw meds anything but reputable, parking his car in a secluded spot nearly 100 meters away. Seizing the moment, I approached his vehicle, quickly pried open the hood, unscrewed the engine cap, and poured the sugar in. The devastating effect sugar can have on an engine is less known. It melts when heated and once liquefied, gums up the engine, effectively destroying it. The engine would be irreparable. And to top it off, insurance companies don't cover such damages. This was added from Tony, a small loan shark. I wanted to show my neighbor the true meaning of payback. After executing my plan, I waited until he returned, only for him to drive the distance before his assured vehicle began emitting black smoke and strange noises, eventually breaking down. Watching from a distance, I reveled in his despair, swiftly making my escape. I was sure he'd suspect me, but I was fed up with his door-smashing antics. Spent the night at my parents' house, amusing myself with thoughts of his reaction upon being told by the repair shop that his engine was beyond repair and that insurance would cover the cost. 3 days later, I returned home to find no new disturbances. It saw they had instead but isn't a storm brewing. No one could let go of such a significant grievance. They were undoubtedly plotting something major. Excited for the escalated battle, I anticipated their next move. With the value of the car at stake, I knew they would target me directly. I made preparations by contacting my rowdy friends for support out for the next 3 days. My life went on as usual, going where it needed to go. on Wednesday night at 10 p.m. as I was carrying some fruit home. I had just entered the alley when a shamed figure appeared behind me. The obese man from across my door finally showed up, just as I had expected, blocking my way with the groups of burly men. Panic, he came up to me and slapped me hard. It was quite painful, covering my face. I asked, "Why are you hitting me?" He pulled out a club and grunted, "You wrecked my shop and my car. The engine is completely ruined, inside and out. The cost to replace it could buy your life. I went human if I don't break your damn legs today." It pretended to be dumbfounded. "But, big brother, wasn't it you who smashed my motorcycle first? An eye for an eye doesn't seem unfair." He was nearly dead with rage, saying, "Your damn motorcycle was worth nothing but smash your motorcycle. And you wrecked my car." I said, "Big brother, this isn't about the money. You smashed my motorcycle because I didn't save a car. If you did, you definitely smashed that too, right? Besides, I wrecked your car because you don't had amateur cycles." He was infuriated. "Shut your damn mouth, guys. Beat him up. There's no surveillance here. No one's coming. Beat him to death." The burly men, armed with clubs, came at me. I was truly scared. Fortunate lie. I was quick and precise. It pulled out the pepper spray that had been warming in my pocket for 3 days and sprayed it at them furiously. They couldn't even swung their clubs before their eyes were so irritated they couldn't open them. I've experienced this myself. It irritates the eyes so much that you lose the instant lie ability to fight in a matter of seconds. They were all lingering and lying on the ground. I smiled and whistled towards the distance. Over 20 people, all friends from childhood, whom I had asked to come unarmed to avoid leaving evidence, rushed in from the corner. This didn't stop us from making our move. We swarmed over the men on the grounded and kicked them furious for 5 minutes, probably breaking several of their ribs. The guy across from me begged for mercy, his face swollen and bruised. Thinking it was enough, I kicked him hard in the rear and told my friends too. We then went our separate ways to avoid trouble. This was a trick we had learned since childhood. Although we left no evidence, I was worried about the police coming. If they investigated thoroughly, it would be dangerous. I waited for 2 hours with no sign of them. Gradually, I realized they dared not call the police because they had ambushed someone first. They just ended up being counter-ambushed. What I didn't expect was that, after so many beatings, they had forgotten their nature and truly saw themselves as long-term victims of bullying. Late at night, his wife suddenly posted pictures of him in the residence group chat. He was in the hospital with both arms in casts and his head bleeding. She poured out a long, heartfelt complaint accusing me of bullying and ambushing her kind, honest husband. Her words were moving, and she even included photos of their son hugging his injured father, eyes brimming with tears. Surprisingly, some neighbors who didn't the full story supported them. I didn't respond, letting them think I was gathering evidence for a counterattacks. But that's not me. Who am I? Someone even more shameless than the shameless. When the accusations had almost died down, I finally spoke up, threatening the woman that if she dared say another word, I would end her whole family, including her son. My words silenced the group chat, the neighbors who had been so eager to help. Seemed to see through the identity of my words. Ruthless mafia boss. I felt a joyful satisfaction of absolute authority. Unexpected lie. Someone from our building spoke up, calling my neighbors wicked and complaining about how their actions had disturbed the peace of mind. The entire building. Support for me slowly grew. People who had been bullied by that family felt embedded to speak up and con them, shifting the narrative in my favor, lying on the couch. I watched as the tide turned. After all the chatter, the truth was out, of course. No one praised me, but I was quite satisfied with the outcome. Unexpected lie. The family across from me still had some fights left. In them, they posted a ridiculous video in the group chat. Both spouses, along with their son, were in the hospital, looking determined yet somber, declaring they would fight against me. The bullies to the end. They insisted they couldn't let the bad guys win, believing in the inherent justice of people's hearts and that the heavens would protect the good, punish the evil, and promote the righteous. Their sons even spat at the camera. It saw their meds. Families had lost their minds, but their unity did somewhat affect me. In that moment, the three of them were as one, like an indestructible fortress that shook me. The evil force. All right, you want unity? It thought with a smirk. Then I'll just have to break up the two of you. The saying goes, an evil person will be dealt with by another evil person, and I admit, I am that latter evil. I was determined to make those who had nothing better to do than play the villains and bullies the weak regretted for the rest of their lives. I sensed this would be my final onslaught against their families. That night, I got in touch with two people, Sherry and Tony, both childhood friends. Sherry was a wild woman, not lacking in money and never one to follow rules. Since middle school, she had smoked, drank, and mingled with society, having been with over 1,000 men by some accounts. After going to school in another city and dating numerous boyfriends, she held no traditional values. In her words, as long as you have the right mindset, it's not clear who's taking advantage of whom. Tony, less fortunate in his family situation but incredibly handsome, could dazzle any girl. Reminiscent of amateur celebrities, his life was full of experiences. After beating up a teacher in high school, he ran away from home and had done all sorts of jobs. Since the one thing about him that commanded respect was his 3 years as artist in a nightclub, it quickly devised a strategy. Sherry would seduce the man across from me, and Tony would charm his wife. Then, we arranged for the couple to catch each other in the act, turning them against each other and leading to their downfall. The next day, Sherry started visiting the man's flower shop, dressed innocently, quite the change from her. The usual attire of tight skirts and dangling cigarettes. I guess that a middle-aged, greasy man might not be into her usual look. So I had her wear a school uniforms and tie her hair in a ponytail. Upon arriving at the shop, anyone would think she was a naive high school girl. Blushing at dirty jokes, she struck up a conversation with the man under the guise of asking about flowers, to which he replied with impressive knowledge. Sherry looked up at him with big, admiring eyes, then bashfully asked for his contact information, thanked him, and ran away. This first love scene was sure to leave the man unable to eat or sleep for days, reminiscing endlessly. Sure enough, within a week, Sherry casually chatted with him and visited his shop twice more, buying 2 pots of flowers. The second visit, the man gifted her a premium pot of roses. Sherry claimed she couldn't carry it on her electric bike, so the man, driving a newly purchased second-hand car, delivered it to her home. Sherry cunningly invited him inside, and he discovered she was ality of refinement, which he found incredibly appealing. After some reserved flirting from Sherry, he almost embraced her. Sherry, feigning shyness, I pushed him away and left him standing outside, figuring he was completely captivated by Sherry, who said it was just a matter of time and awaited my command. I thanked her for her efforts. She replied that the man was actually not bad, just visually unappealing. Ah, What wouldn't I do for a friend? She lamented. Tony's progress with the wife was slower, though she looked fierce. She came from a wealthy family and took good care of herself, possessing a certain charm. But Tony, having dominated the nightlife for years, was easily deterred. Red. The problem was that she was somewhat conservative, owning a clothing store in the trading city. Tony visited a few times under the pretense of buying clothes for his girlfriend. Initially, she was visibly impressed by Tony's handsomeness, but despite his flirtatious efforts, she remained distant and unhooked. He did have a newfound respect for her, but did she know how lecherous her husband was? Why was she blindly upholding chastity for him? Tony visited 3 times a week. Although she didn't bite, they became acquainted, and she even praised Tony for being good to his girlfriend, hinting at a budding friendship between them. Over the weekend, Tony flirted with her again, to no avail. Frustrated, he consulted me on what to do next. After some thought, considering Tony's attractiveness and her lack of aversion to him, it suggested she had at least as light interests. The issue was her heart wasn't open. It suggested exploiting the jealousy women often feel. Next week, Tony would bring a gorgeous girl and act affectionate in front of her too. See if she got jealous. On Monday, Tony brought a delicate beauty, introducing her as his girlfriend. Their public displays of affection seemed almost too intense for the shop. Observing this, the woman from across my door clearly felt uncomfortable, her usual warmth fading. Sometimes your emotions control you, not the other way around. Tony noted she was even somewhat cold that day. I sensed we were close. We weren't afraid of her negative emotions, but rather of her indifference. Emotions indicated there was still a connection, which could eventually lead to her taking the bait. A few days later, on Friday night, Tony messaged me excitedly from out of town, claiming success. Jumping up from my couch, I asked for details. Puzzled by his sudden long-distance venture, Tony sent a text followed by a video, which delighted me. The woman had gone out of town to stock up on inventory, and upon hearing this, Tony flew out to coincidentally meet her. Dinner and drinks followed, and she ended up drunk, with one thing leading to another. Naturally, laughing heartily, I congratulated Tony, reimbursing him for his flight, though he insisted it was a minor issue. 2 days later, they returned. Tony visited me the next day, all fired up and ready for our final move that weekend. Time flew, and Sherry continued to manipulate the man across my door, who followed her lead without question. Sherry had previously installed cameras at home, capturing everything. On Saturday afternoon, Tony met up with the woman as planned, with me discreet recording the encounter. I added the man from across my doors on the residence group chat, then sent him the video with the address. He arrived in Erich, accompanied by 2 others, storming in to confront them. The confrontation escalated until Tony, repeating his previous tactics, used pepper spray to defend himself. Shortly after, Sherry arrived with 2 police officers without much explanation. We went upstairs. The police, observing the chaos, immediately understood the domestic nature of the incident but arrested the man for suspected home invasion and assault. Confused and unable to see, the man was stunned, as was his wife. Sherry provoked further by showing her the video, leading to a new rounds of chaos. I watched, reveling in their downfall. 3 days later, Sherry confessed to the police that her actions were a prank, a momentary lapse of judgment she now regretted. Wanting to forgive the man, it took a while for him to be released. Meanwhile, I waited at home, knowing the couple was irreparably estranged, ready to fight to the death upon seeing each other. Sure enough, the man's return was marked by the sound of smashing dishes and their children's cries, confirming their complete ruin. The commotion escalated, like lie resulting in their television and furniture being completely destroyed. Everyone in our building, no longer intimidated, came out to watch the spectacle. After roughly 2 hours of smashing, the man emerged with a darkened face, his features marred by dripping with scratches. Blood. The woman was found kneeling inside, clutching their children, her appearance disheveled, sporting a bruised face and swollen eyes, a sight so pitiful that none of us could born to look any longer. A month later, they moved out, a shadow of their former selves, and were never seen in our neighborhood again.